Hello and welcome back to Two Dark Dozes. Before we begin, feel free to leave a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I love reading every single one. If you enjoy dark doses of horror that hit you twice as hard, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. Now, get comfortable. Dim the lights if you dare, relax your mind, let the outside world fade away, and let's begin. Story 1, I refreshed the movie times on my phone again, even though I already knew nothing was going to change. It was probably the 6th time I had checked in the last 20 minutes. I kept hoping that if I stared at the screen long enough, some perfect showtime would appear out of nowhere, like the theater app had been hiding it from me as a joke. It did not. There was a 7:15 p.m. showing, and then a 10:15 p.m. Showing nothing between them. No 8 Bolero, no 8:30, not even an 8:45. I did not understand when movie theaters decided to stop showing movies at normal human times. 8-something was the perfect time for a movie. It was late enough that you could grab dinner first, but not so late that you walked out of the theater feeling like you had made a terrible life choice. Nikki would have gone with me if she could. She liked horror movies almost as much as I did, even though she always said she hated them while watching through her fingers. But she had to close at the pharmacy that night. Even the 10:15 showing would have been hard for her, and the next day was Sunday, which meant she had to open early in the morning. I could not ask her to stay up late just because I did not want to sit in a dark theater by myself. So I gave up. A night in, then, I could order a large pepperoni pizza from Gino's, find a scary movie on streaming, and pretend that was basically the same thing. It wasn't, but it was cheaper. And cheaper was usually the winning argument in my life. I sat up on the couch and slipped my phone back into the front pocket of my hoodie. The apartment felt too quiet without Nikki there. It always did. Not that the place was big. It was a one-bedroom apartment with thin walls, old floors, and a kitchen so small that when I opened the fridge, the little yellow bulb inside lit up half the room. The building sat on the rougher side of town, the kind of place where people left garbage bags in the hallway because walking them down to the dumpster was apparently too much to ask. But it was what I could afford. I was 20 years old, a high school dropout, and I washed dishes at a diner. I was not exactly choosing between luxury apartments. Half the time, I was choosing between doing laundry and buying real groceries. Still, it would have been nice to live somewhere that did not sound like it was slowly falling apart above me. The old woman upstairs made noise almost every other night. Furniture dragging, heavy thumps, floorboards creaking. It always sounded like she was moving her whole apartment around in the dark. I knew her last name started with an A. Mrs. Albright, maybe, or Abrams, something like that. I had seen it written on her mailbox once in faded blue letters. I had lived in the building for 2 years, and I think I had spoken maybe 3 words to her. The few times we crossed paths, usually near the elevator, she looked at me like I was personally responsible for the building getting worse. She always had one of those small rolling grocery carts old people used, and she always gripped the handle like she expected someone to steal it. I couldn't blame her for not liking me. I probably looked exactly like the kind of guy she imagined when she thought about the neighborhood going downhill. Same black hoodie most days, messy hair even when I tried to fix it, usually carrying a pizza box, a bag of energy drinks, or some frozen food I could throw in the microwave. I was not exactly giving promising young man energy. Nikki hated when I talked like that. She always told me I was too hard on myself. She said I was doing fine, that I was working, that I was trying, that nobody had their life figured out at 20. It was easy for her to say that. Nikki had her life together in a way that made me feel like I was still waiting for the adult version of myself to show up. She worked at a pharmacy. People trusted her with medication. They asked her questions, and listened when she answered. I washed dishes in the back of a diner where the owner still called me Kid because he forgot my name twice a week. I wasn't ashamed of the job exactly. Money was money. But there was something about coming home every night smelling like grease, bleach, and old coffee that made me feel like life had already made some decisions for me. That was one of the reasons I loved going to the movies. For 2 hours, you could sit in the dark and disappear. You did not have to be a dropout. You did not have to be broke. You did not have to be the guy in apartment 2B who counted quarters before doing laundry. You could just be a person in a seat, watching fake people deal with problems that were somehow even worse than yours. The ceiling creaked above me. I looked up. A slow scraping sound moved across the ceiling. There it was again. Right on time, I muttered. I had no idea what Mrs. Albright did up there. Maybe she rearranged her furniture every night. Maybe she had some old exercise machine. Maybe she was building a wall of chairs against her front door because she thought everyone in the building was out to get her. Or maybe, like Nikki always said, I watched too many horror movies and had started turning every normal sound into something with candles and chanting. The scraping stopped. Then came 3 soft thumps. Not loud, not dramatic, just enough to make me keep staring at the ceiling longer than a normal person would have. I waited. Nothing else happened. Cool, I said to the empty room. Very normal, I pulled out my phone and opened the Geno's app. Large pepperoni. If I was going to sit alone on a Saturday night, I might as well fully commit to it. I added garlic knots, too, then stared at the total like it had personally insulted me. I removed the garlic knots. The total dropped by $4. I stared at it for 5 seconds. Then I added them back. Future me can deal with it, I said. Right when I hit checkout, my phone buzzed. It was Nikki. Please tell me you didn't go to the 10:15 by yourself. I smiled and typed back. Relax. I'm being boring and staying home. She replied almost instantly. Good. Order food and watch something scary. But not too scary, because then you'll text me saying your apartment feels haunted. I looked up at the ceiling again. My apartment always feels haunted. Her answer came a few seconds later. That's because you live in a building that looks like it was designed by a depressed prison architect. That made me laugh out loud. The sound felt strange in the apartment by myself, like I had surprised the room. True, I typed. I'll call you on my break if I can. Love you. I wrote love you too, and sent it. For a few seconds, I sat there holding the phone, staring at her last message. It was stupid, but those words made the apartment feel a little less empty. Like Nikki had reached through the screen and left a small light on somewhere. Then something knocked above me. Not scraped. Knocked. 3 times. I looked up again. The ceiling was silent. I told myself it was pipes. That building was old enough that pipes could explain almost anything. Pipes, settling walls, neighbors, raccoons in the crawl space. If a ghost ever actually appeared in my apartment, the landlord would probably tell me it was the radiator and then raise my rent. Then the knock came again. 3 times, directly over my head. Mrs. Albright? I called, which was stupid. There was no way she could hear me through the ceiling unless she was lying on the floor with her ear pressed to it. And if she was doing that, I had a whole new problem. No answer. I stood up, mostly because staying on the couch suddenly felt too much like being scared. The floor was cold under my socks. Nikki had told me many times to buy slippers. And every time I told her slippers were for dads who got excited about mulch. But right then, standing on the cold floor, I had to admit she might have been right. I walked to my front door and listened. The building sounded normal. A TV played somewhere. Pipes clicked inside the walls. Somebody coughed across the hall. Outside, a car passed with music so loud that my window buzzed in its frame. Normal building sounds. I opened the door. The hallway smelled like garbage and a cheap vanilla candle fighting for its life. The overhead light flickered once, not in a creepy way, just in a "this building needed repairs years ago" way. No one was there. Then I heard something from upstairs. Dragging, low, heavy, slow, it moved from one side of the ceiling to the other, like something large was being pulled across the floor. Then it stopped. I stood in my doorway, one hand still on the knob. "Okay," I whispered. That was apparently all my brain had ready. I could have called the landlord. His name was Carl, and Carl had the energy of a man who thought every phone call was a personal attack. If your heat stopped working, he would ask if you had tried turning the knob. If your ceiling fell down, he would probably ask if it was still under warranty. So instead of calling Carl, I did what any normal, responsible adult would do in that situation. I went upstairs by myself. I was not brave. I want to make that clear. I was not walking up there like some tough guy from a movie. I was thinking about every horror scene where some idiot investigates a noise and gets dragged into a wall. But this was real life. In real life, strange noises usually turned out to be old people moving furniture, or pets, or washing machines trying to destroy themselves. Mrs. Albright's apartment was 3B, directly above mine. Her door looked like mine, but somehow older, even though all the doors in the building were probably installed at the same time. It had a brass peephole, a deadbolt, and one of those old chain locks that looked like it had been trusted since the 80s. A faded mat sat crooked in front of it. It did not say welcome. It said, "Please leave packages with office." That would have been funny if there had been an office. There was no office. I stood outside her door and listened. Nothing. I raised my hand to knock, then hesitated. Suddenly I felt embarrassed. What was I supposed to say? "Hi, sorry, are you dragging a body around or just being old? Also, I live downstairs and have the courage of a wet paper towel." I knocked anyway. Softly at first. More like a suggestion than a knock. No answer. I knocked again. "Harder, Mrs. Albright." I called. "It's Dan." From downstairs, nothing. I leaned a little closer to the door. From inside, I heard a faint sound. Breathing. At least I thought it was breathing. It could have been the radiator. It could have been pipes. In that building, everything could be pipes if you wanted to be a coward badly enough. "Just checking if everything's okay," I said. The breathing stopped. That was worse than if it had kept going. Then something shifted behind the door. Not footsteps exactly, more like someone slowly leaning their weight against the other side. The chain lock moved, just a tiny metallic clink. My stomach tightened. "Mrs. Albright?" A thin voice came from inside, very close to the door. "Go back downstairs," I blinked. I said, because I am very impressive under pressure. "Okay, sorry, I just heard. Go back downstairs, Daniel." That was the first time she had ever said my name. I had never told her my name. Sure, there were normal ways she could have known it. Maybe she had seen it on my mailbox. Maybe she had seen a package outside my door. Maybe Nikki had said it in the hallway once, and she overheard. I still took a step back. "Yeah," I said. "No problem." I turned and walked toward the stairs, trying very hard not to look like I was walking too fast. There is no dignified way to be scared while wearing socks. When I got back to my apartment, I locked the door. Then I realized I had only locked the knob, so I unlocked it and locked the deadbolt too. "Cool," I said again, because apparently that was my official response to fear. I went back to the couch. The Geno's app said my pizza was being prepared. Estimated delivery, 36 minutes. That helped. Normal life was still happening somewhere. A tired guy in a red polo was putting pepperoni on dough. The world had not ended just because the old woman upstairs was acting strange and knew my name. I grabbed the remote and turned on the TV. I chose a movie called The House at Black Pine Road because the poster showed a creepy hallway, and I am exactly the kind of person who clicks on a movie because of a creepy hallway. The movie opened with a family driving through heavy rain. Of course it did. I leaned back and tried to relax. For a few minutes it actually worked. There was a mother, a father, a creepy kid in the back seat, and a dog that was definitely not going to survive until the end credits. It was the kind of horror movie where everyone ignores obvious warning signs, because if they didn't, the whole story would be 12 minutes long. Then something scraped across the ceiling again. I paused the movie. The scraping moved slowly from one side of the ceiling to the other. Then it stopped right above me. I waited. One knock, then another, then a third. My phone buzzed, and for a second I felt relieved because I thought it was Nikki. It was Geno's. Your order is on the way. I let out a breath and laughed once, even though nothing was funny. Perfect, I said. The pizza guy can find the body. I unpaused the movie. On screen, the family had arrived at the house they had clearly inherited from some dead relative who probably collected teeth. The dad looked around and said something like, "It just needs some work," which in horror movie language means everyone is going to die because I'm cheap. I watched for maybe 3 more minutes before I realized I was not hearing any of the dialogue. All I could hear was the ceiling. Not because it was making noise now. That was the problem. It had gone completely quiet. No dragging, no knocking, no footsteps, just silence above me. Like Mrs. Albright had pressed pause on whatever strange thing was happening in her apartment. I looked at the microwave clock, 8:17. My phone buzzed again. "Nikki, break-in 5. You alive?" "Barely," I typed. "Mrs. Albright told me to go back downstairs. Why were you upstairs bothering old women? She was knocking on my ceiling. Maybe she dropped something." 3 times? Directly over my head? Maybe she dropped 3 things directly over your head. I laughed. "You're not taking my haunting seriously. I take your haunting very seriously. I just also think you are a dramatic little freak." That made me feel better. Nikki had a way of making big, scary things feel small. Not by making fun of me exactly, but by turning on a light in my head. My brain could make any shadow look like a monster, and Nikki could point out it was probably just a coat on a chair. I was typing. Back when the movie paused. Not froze. Paused. The pause symbol appeared in the middle of the screen like someone had pressed the remote. I looked down. The remote was on the couch cushion beside me. My hands were on my phone. "Okay," I said quietly. The apartment did nothing. The fridge hummed. A car passed outside. Someone down the hall sneezed loudly enough that it felt personal. I picked up the remote and hit play. Nothing happened. I hit it again. The screen stayed paused. Cool, great, perfect timing. I stood, aimed the remote at the TV like it would somehow make it work better, and hit play again. This time, the movie started. The dad was walking into a dark basement. "Nope," I said. "Don't do that." He did it. Of course he did. The basement door in the movie creaked open at the exact same time something creaked above me. I muted the TV. From upstairs, I heard a soft sound. Not knocking, not dragging, a voice. At first, it was only a low murmur through the ceiling. Mrs. Albright talking to herself. Maybe old people did that. I did that too. I had been talking to myself all night like I was recording a podcast for ghosts. Then I heard my name. Dan, very soft. I stood completely still. Dan, this time it was clear. Not loud, not shouted, just spoken, like someone was sitting directly above me with their mouth close to the floor. I told myself not to answer. That was the rule. Do not answer the creepy voice. Do not say hello into the dark hallway. Do not follow the child singing in the distance. Do not open the old book. Horror movies had trained me for this exact moment. And for once in my life, I was ready to use that knowledge. Then my phone rang and I almost threw it across the room. It was Nikki. I answered so fast, I nearly dropped it. Hey, I said, trying to sound normal and sounding instead like a man lying to a cop. Why do you sound like that? She asked. Like what? Like you just swallowed a battery. I'm good, Dan. I looked up at the ceiling. I think Mrs. Albright is being weird. That's your update? The old woman upstairs continues to be old? No, I mean weird. What happened? The floor above me creaked. One slow step, then another. Without thinking, I lowered my voice. She knows my name. There was a pause. Okay, Nikki said. That is a little weird, thank you, but she probably saw it on your mail. That is exactly what I told myself. Because I am also brave. Did she threaten you? No. She told me to go back downstairs. Were you upstairs? Briefly. Then honestly, Dan, I'm kind of on her side, I laughed. But it came out weak. Nikki went quiet. In the background, I could hear the sounds of the pharmacy. A register beeped. Someone said something about a coupon. The little normal noises made me want to be there instead of in my apartment. Do you want me to come over after work? She asked. No, I said too quickly. Dan, no, seriously, you open tomorrow. I don't care. I do. I'm not making you come over because my ceiling goblin is acting up. Ceiling goblin? I'm trying out names. Another creak came from upstairs. This time it sounded closer to the kitchen. The kitchen light flickered once. Then again. Dan? Nikki asked. Yeah. What happened? Nothing. You went quiet. I'm just watching my electric bill try to kill itself. Do you want me to stay on the phone? I wanted to say yes. I wanted it badly. But I could hear how tired she was. I pictured her standing in the break room in her scrubs, one hand over her ear, trying to hear me while printers and customers and coworkers made noise around her. No, I said. Go eat your little break granola bar. It's not little. You eat like a squirrel with a schedule. Text me if anything actually scary happens. What counts as actually scary? If Mrs. Albright crawls across your ceiling like Spider-Man, then you can call me. What if she crawls like Spider-Man? But politely. Then let her cook. I laughed for real that time. Love you, she said. Love you too, the call ended. The room felt worse afterward. That was the thing about phone calls. While someone was on the line, you could pretend they were almost there with you. Then the call ended, and the silence came back heavier than before, like it had been waiting in the corner the whole time. The movie was still muted. I turned the TV off. The apartment went dark except for the kitchen light. Then the doorbell rang. I jumped. A second later, I felt stupid. Pizza, obviously. Jesus, I muttered, pressing a hand to my chest. Get a grip. I looked through the peephole. A guy in a red Geno's polo stood outside, holding an insulated pizza bag. He looked bored, and his boredom made me want to thank him. Bored was normal. Bored was safe. I opened the door. Dan? He asked. Yeah, large pepperoni, garlic knots, beautiful. He handed me the boxes. I gave him a few crumpled bills from the little bowl near the door where I kept change, receipts, and one screw I was afraid to throw away because I did not know what it belonged to. Thanks, man, I said. He nodded, then glanced past me into the apartment. Not in a nosy way, more like something had caught his attention. I turned and looked behind me. Nothing. Kitchen light. Couch, TV, hoodie on the floor. Normal, when I looked back at him, his face had changed. "You good?" I asked. "Yeah," he said, but he did not leave. He looked up, not at my ceiling, at the hallway ceiling. I followed his eyes. There was a stain on the plaster above my door. I had seen it before. Water damage, probably. That building had stains the way normal buildings had decorations. But this stain looked bigger than usual. Darker, wetter. The pizza guy took a small step back. "Something leaking?" he asked. "Probably," I said. "This place leaks if someone thinks about rain." He gave a polite laugh, but he kept staring up. Then a drop fell. It landed on the hallway floor between us. Not water. Too dark. For a second, neither of us moved. Then, the pizza guy said quietly, "Dude." I looked down. The drop spread on the dirty tile. It was not exactly red. It was brownish black, like old coffee, or old blood, or something at the bottom of a dumpster that you would not want to understand. Another drop fell. Then another. The pizza guy stepped back. He pointed toward the stairs. Yeah, I said. He left quickly, but he did not run. Running would have made it official. This was more like a man deciding his job did not cover whatever this was, and honestly, I respected that. I shut my door. I locked it. Then, the deadbolt. I stood inside my apartment, still holding the pizza boxes like an idiot. The ceiling above my entryway was dry. Of course it was. Whatever was leaking was in the hallway, not my apartment. That meant it was a building problem. A Carl problem. I put the pizza on the counter and called the landlord. Voicemail. "Hey, Carl, it's Dan in 2B. There's some kind of leak in the hallway outside my door. From upstairs, I think. It's dark, like really dark. Call me back." I hung up. Then I called again because that message made it sound like I was politely reporting soup. Voicemail again. "Carl, it's Dan again. I think something might be wrong in 3B. Mrs. Albright's place. There's stuff leaking through the ceiling, and she was acting weird earlier. So maybe come check it out." I hung up. Then I did the thing I did not want to do. I opened my door again. The hallway was empty. The dark drops had made a small dotted line on the floor. Plop, 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 not much. Just enough. I stepped out and looked up. The stain had spread wider, like a shadow blooming through the plaster. I should have called 911 right then. I know that now. That would have been the adult thing to do. But at the time, my brain kept trying to fit everything inside a normal explanation. Maybe she knocked something over. Maybe a pipe burst. Maybe she was hurt. That last thought got me. Because weird or not, scary or not, Mrs. Albright was an old woman. If she was hurt upstairs while I sat below her eating pizza and watching fake people die in fake houses, then I was the kind of guy I did not want to be. I grabbed my phone. Then, for reasons I still cannot fully explain, I grabbed the pizza too. Not the garlic knots, just the pizza. Maybe some part of me thought that if I was carrying a pizza, then whatever I was doing could not be that serious. Nobody walks into a nightmare holding a large pepperoni. That was just science. I went upstairs. The stain was worse on the third floor. A dark line was coming from under Mrs. Albright's door. It was thin as a shoelace and ran across the hallway before disappearing into a crack in the floor. I stopped at the top of the stairs. "Nope," I whispered. Then I stood there for several seconds, because apparently, nope was just a feeling, not a plan. The chain lock moved behind her door. Clink, 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 like someone was touching it gently with one finger. "Mrs. Albright?" I said. No answer. "I'm calling someone, okay? If you're hurt, I'm calling someone." The chain stopped moving. Then her voice came through the door. "Don't let him know you're there." My mouth went dry. I looked behind me. The hallway was empty. "Who?" I asked. Silence, Mrs. Albright? The dark line under the door thickened. I stepped back. Then something knocked from inside her apartment. 3 times. Not on the door. On the floor. Right by my feet. The pizza box shook in my hand. Then Mrs. Albright whispered from so close to the bottom of the door that I could hear a wet click in her throat. He likes when they answer. That was enough. I backed away, hit the emergency call button on my phone, and started down the stairs. I was not running. Again, running would have made it too real. I was moving quickly with purpose, which is what cowards call running when they want to feel better. The 911 operator answered as I reached the 2nd floor. 911, what is your emergency? Hi, I said, because apparently I was raised to be polite even during whatever this was. I think my upstairs neighbor might be hurt. Or there's a leak. Or both. What is your address? I gave it to her. Are you with the person now? No, she's in apartment 3B. I'm in 2B. What makes you think she is hurt? I opened my apartment door and stepped inside. There's something coming through the ceiling. It looks like blood. The word sounded ridiculous when I said it. Blood, like I was a kid telling on a monster. Is anyone else in the apartment with you? The operator asked. No. As soon as I said it, something moved in my kitchen. I froze. It was not a person. Not exactly. It was the soft scrape of one of my kitchen chairs sliding back from the table. The chair moved another inch. The operator said something, but I missed it. What? I whispered. Sir, are you safe? The kitchen chair stopped. Then 3 knocks came from beneath the table. 1, 2, 3. I backed toward the front door. No, I said. No, I don't think I am. Leave the apartment if you can do so safely. That was great advice. Clean, official, simple. Unfortunately, the apartment door behind me clicked. I turned around. The deadbolt had locked itself. I grabbed the knob. Locked. Of course it was locked. I had locked it. Like a genius. Like a man preparing to be murdered safely. I reached for the deadbolt. Before my fingers touched it, someone knocked from the other side of the door. 3 times. I stopped breathing. Then Mrs. Albright's voice whispered from the hallway. Daniel. I did not answer. I had finally learned one thing. The kitchen chair scraped again behind me. I turned slowly. The chair was now pulled all the way out from the table. The kitchen light flickered. On, off, on, off. Each time the room went dark, something seemed different when the light came back. Not huge things, small things. The pizza box shifted closer to the edge of the counter. The cabinet under the sink opened a crack. The TV turned on with no sound, showing the paused horror movie again, a dead man's face filling the screen in cold blue light. Then the kitchen light went out completely. The only light came from the TV. On the screen, the movie was gone. It was showing my living room. Not a room that looked like mine. Mine, my couch, my coffee table, my half-empty bottle of Coke, my black hoodie on the floor. The TV itself showing the room, creating that strange tunnel effect like when a camera points at a screen. And in the image on the TV, someone was standing behind me. I spun around. No one was there. I looked back at the TV. The figure was still on the screen. Tall, thin, too thin. Standing in the dark space between my kitchen and the hallway. My phone slipped in my sweaty hand. The operator was telling me police were on the way. Police, good. Police were normal. Police were radios and boots and paperwork. Police were people who would come in and make this embarrassing instead of impossible. I only had to get out. I grabbed the deadbolt and turned it. It did not move. The knock came again. 3 times. This time from the TV. The figure on the screen raised one long arm and knocked from inside the glass. Tap, tap, tap. I dropped the phone. The operator's tiny voice came from the floor. Sir? Sir? I backed away from the TV and hit my leg against the coffee table. Pain shot up my shin. Strangely, that helped. Pain was normal. Pain meant my body still worked. It meant the world still had rules. The TV went black. The apartment was dark. Then my phone lit up on the floor. It was not Nikki, not Gino's. It was the theater app. Your 8:30 showing is starting now. I stared at the screen. There had not been an 8:30 showing. That was the whole stupid reason I had stayed home. The notification changed. Please take your seat. Then the TV turned back on. It showed a movie theater, empty red seats, a glowing screen at the front. The view came from somewhere near the back row, looking down over the room. For a second, I thought it was some trailer or ad. Then, I saw someone sitting alone in the middle. A woman in a purple bathrobe. Mrs. Albright. She sat perfectly still, facing the screen. The screen inside the theater showed my apartment. It showed me standing there in the dark. Mrs. Albright turned her head just slightly. Not all the way. Just enough for me to see the side of her face. Her mouth moved. The words came from my ceiling. Don't answer. Then the seat beside her folded down by itself. My phone buzzed again. One guest waiting. From the hallway outside my apartment, something began dragging itself toward my door. Slow, heavy, wet, I stepped back until my shoulders hit the wall. The thing stopped outside. For 1 second, everything went silent. Then it knocked. 1, 2, 3. And because I am an idiot, because I am human, because my brain had been trained by 20 years of doors and phones and people calling my name, I almost said, "Who is it?" I bit my tongue hard enough to taste blood. The knocking came again. 1, 2, 3, then Nikki's voice came from the other side of the door. "Dan?" My whole body went cold. "Dan, open up." "It's me." I stared at the door. Nikki was at work. Nikki had been at work. Nikki had just called me from the pharmacy. She could not be outside my door. "Dan?" she said again. "You're scaring me." It sounded exactly like her. Not close. Exact. The little worried lift in her voice. The way she said my name when she thought I was being stubborn. My hand moved toward the deadbolt. I grabbed my own wrist with my other hand and stopped myself. "No," I whispered. The voice outside changed. "Only a little. Open the door, babe." Nikki never called me babe. I do not know why that saved me, but it did. I backed away from the door. The thing outside went quiet. Then it laughed. Not Nikki's laugh, not Mrs. Albright's laugh, not a human laugh at all. It sounded like something learning laughter by listening through walls. The deadbolt began to turn. Slowly, I grabbed it with both hands. It pushed against me from the other side. Not hard at first, just steady, like whoever was out there had all night. I held on with everything I had. My teeth were clenched. My socks slipped against the cheap floor. My palms burned against the metal. Then, I heard sirens outside. Far away at first. Then closer. The pressure on the deadbolt stopped. The thing in the hallway became still. The sirens grew louder, echoing between the buildings, ugly and beautiful and real. Something above me screamed. Not Mrs. Albright, not a woman, not anything I had a name for. The whole apartment shook. A crack ripped across the ceiling from the kitchen to the living room. Dust fell into my hair and onto my face. The TV popped and went black. Cabinets flew open. Plates crashed onto the floor. Then the front door unlocked. The deadbolt turned under my hand so fast it burned my palm. The door swung open, and I fell backward. The hallway was empty. The stain above the door was gone. No dark drops, no line from upstairs. Nothing. Two police officers came up the stairwell seconds later, followed by a paramedic. I must have looked insane. I was sitting on the floor in socks, covered in white dust, holding a pizza box against my chest like someone had just tried to steal my baby. One officer asked if I was Daniel. I said yes. He asked if I was hurt. I said no. He asked what had happened. I looked past him at the hallway. Normal lights, normal carpet, normal garbage smell. I don't know, I said. That was the first honest answer I had given all night. They went upstairs. I waited in the hallway with the paramedic, who kept asking if I had taken anything. No, I said. Any alcohol? No. Any medication? Dude, I had half a Coke and ordered garlic knots. He looked at the pizza box. You still have those? Kitchen counter, he nodded like that was the saddest thing he had heard all night. The police came back down about 10 minutes later. Mrs. Albright was dead. They did not tell me much. People do not tell you much when you are the guy in socks who called 911 about a haunted ceiling. But I heard enough. She had been dead for at least 2 days. 2 days, which meant the woman who told me to go back downstairs could not have been Mrs. Albright, or maybe she could have been. I did not like either possibility. Nikki showed up 20 minutes after the police did, even though I had told her not to come. She came, rushing up the stairs still, in her work shoes, her face pale and her hair messy, looking angry in the way people look when they are terrified and love you at the same time. She hugged me so hard my back cracked. Ow, I said. Shut up, Fair. She pulled back and looked at my face. What happened? I glanced at the officers, the paramedic, the clean hallway ceiling. I stayed home, I said. Nikki stared at me. Then she hugged me again. I did not sleep in my apartment that night. Obviously, I stayed at Nikki's place. Her apartment was bright and clean and smelled like laundry detergent and vanilla body wash. It had normal noises. The fridge hummed. The heat clicked on. Someone upstairs walked across the floor once or twice. I almost cried because it sounded so normal. Around 2 in the morning, while Nikki slept beside me, I checked my phone. I do not know why. Maybe because I am stupid. Maybe because fear makes you keep touching the bruise. The theater app was still open. The 7:15 showing was grayed out. The 10:15 showing was grayed out. Between them, there was an 8:30 showing. 1 ticket purchased, 1 ticket scanned. I stared at the screen until my eyes burned. Then a new notification appeared. Thank you for attending. Under it, in smaller letters, it said, please rate your experience. I deleted the app. Then I turned off my phone. Then I lay in the dark beside Nikki and listened to her breathing. For a while, that was enough. The next morning, Carl called me at 9:12. Hey, he said. It's Carl, I know. The police told me there was an incident. That's one word for it, he sighed. Like I had personally inconvenienced him by discovering death in his building. Listen, apartment 3B is going to be sealed up for a while. But your unit is fine. No leak. No leak? I asked. Nope. There was stuff coming through the ceiling, ceiling's dry. I sat up in Nikki's bed. What about the crack? What crack? The crack in my ceiling, Dan. I was just in there. Ceiling looks fine. I did not say anything. Carl cleared his throat. Anyway, you can come back whenever. Rent is still due Friday. Of course it was. After I hung up, Nikki rolled over and looked at me with one eye open. Was that your troll landlord? Yeah. What did he want? Rent. During your haunting? Capitalism never sleeps. She groaned and pulled the blanket over her head. I almost laughed. Almost, then my phone buzzed. I had turned it off. I knew I had turned it off. It buzzed once on the nightstand. Nikki pulled the blanket down. Was that yours? I did not move. The screen lit up by itself. There was no app icon, no number, just a gray notification box. Now showing 3B from somewhere above us, in Nikki's clean, normal apartment, where no old woman lived upstairs and no one dragged furniture across the floor, came 3 soft knocks. 1, 2, 3, story 2. I'm telling you, my new place is seriously haunted. Jerry looked at me over the top of her iced coffee. She pulled her oval sunglasses down just enough to give me the look. Every close friendship has one. It is that silent stare that says, I love you, but I do not believe a single word coming out of your mouth. I knew that look well because I had given it to her just last week. She had been completely sure her handsome neighbor was stealing her packages just so he would have a reason to talk to her. It turned out the delivery guy had been leaving them 2 doors down by mistake. Now it was my turn to be judged. I swear, I said, laughing a little, because I knew how it sounded. Something is wrong with that house. You always think houses are haunted, Gary said. Every place you stay in for more than 2 days suddenly has a ghost. Remember that Airbnb in Phoenix? You were convinced there was a demon in the attic, and it turned out to be raccoons. That was still scary, I said, stopping at a cheese stand to look at a wheel of brie. And fine, maybe I'm easy to scare. But this place is different. This is not just a weird noise or an old pipe. This is full-on horror movie stuff. What kind of horror movie stuff? She asked. Clowns under the bed? Skeletons in the swimming pool? I picked up a piece of camembert, then put it back down. Not that dramatic. So, normal clowns under the bed and skeletons in the closet, she said. Then she lowered her sunglasses again and winked. Assuming late-night Luke has stopped by. I groaned. Luke and I are done. Fully done. Separated, finished. He has not been near my bed, my closet, or any other part of my life. And yet the rumors continue, Gary said. We were walking through the farmer's market, moving from stall to stall in the warm afternoon light. The place smelled like fresh fruit, baked bread, flowers, coffee, fried food, and expensive soap made by people who probably owned chickens. I had promised myself that moving into my new house meant starting a new chapter. Clean living, clean eating, better choices, no more toxic men, no more late-night mistakes, no more pretending a bad decision was romantic just because he had nice arms and knew what to say at 2 in the morning. Gary stopped beside a stand selling elephant ears. They were huge pieces of fried dough covered in cinnamon and sugar, and the smell hit me like a beautiful crime. Want one? She asked. My treat. I stared at the golden dough. It looked big enough to use as a blanket. No, I said, fighting every weak part of myself. I'm here to eat clean. New place, new me. Your loss, she bought one anyway. When the man handed it to her, it was so large she held it beside her head for comparison. It was bigger than her face. She rolled it slightly, took a bite, and cinnamon sugar dripped onto her shirt. Shit, she said, wiping at the spot. Karma, I said. Tell me how awful it tastes. It's terrible, she said with her mouth full. Like dirt, cigarette butts, and poor decisions. Very late-night Luke. I laughed so hard I had to stop walking. Then I am definitely passing, I said. That's what you always say, she sang, stretching the words out dramatically, and then the dirtbag returns. Someone walking by actually clapped for her little performance. Gary bowed. I shook my head. Not anymore, I said. Clean eating and clean dating. No elephant ears. No Lukes. She gave me a real smile then. I'm proud of you. You know. It's hard to change. And you do deserve better. Thanks. But that still does not mean your house is haunted, she added. So tell me what is happening. I shifted my market bag to my other arm. Doors open by themselves, windows open and slam shut. The floorboards creak when no one is walking. My stuff gets moved around. I hear noises in the hall and sometimes in the attic. Old house, Geary said. Old houses make sounds. I've also heard mumbling under the floor, like someone whispering in the crawl space. That made her pause. Okay, she said. You should have led with that. The crawl space thing is creepy. I know, but the rest still sounds normal. The windows probably don't stay up because the frames are old. The floorboards could be the weather. Expansion, contraction, whatever, you are jumping straight to ghosts because you like ghost stories. I also smudged the house with sage, I said. Then maybe the ghost is mad because now the place smells like a yoga studio. We reached the last produce stall. I looked into my bag and frowned. So far, my clean living haul is 5 carrots, 1 head of lettuce, and goat cheese. We have been here for an hour, Geary said. That is embarrassing. You want grapes? The man behind the stand asked. His voice was rough and gravelly, like he had swallowed a handful of stones. They taste like cotton candy. Got cherries, too. Hummus, I'll make you a deal so I don't have to pack everything back up. Cherries sound good, I said, reaching for my wallet. He started weighing them. And about your floorboards, it might be a loose subfloor. Or the weather. Wood moves when the temperature changes. My brother is a carpenter if you need someone. Thanks, I said, but I'm renting. Gary leaned close and whispered in his gravelly voice, Let me see your floorboards, honey. I got something that'll fix them. We both started laughing. Then a large shadow fell over us. We turned and found a young man holding a huge, shiny balloon shaped like a bear. The bear wore a little suit and held a sign that said, Very nice. Its round cheeks were pink, and its face had a big, friendly smile. The man holding it was almost as nice-looking as the balloon was ridiculous. He was tall and slim, with a soft baby face, dimples, and pale blue eyes so clear they almost did not look real. Sorry, he said. I didn't mean to scare you. I realized after I walked up that the balloon's shadow probably looked insane. I smiled before I could stop myself. Did you need cherries or something? No, thanks. I'm actually a vendor here. I have to leave for another event, and I haven't been able to sell this guy. Would you like him? I looked at Jerry, then back at him. I don't really need a balloon right now. Oh, no, he said quickly, laughing. I mean, as a gift. I figured a pretty woman might not mind taking Teddy home. I hated myself for the way my stomach fluttered. Well, I said, if he needs a place to stay, I may have a spare room. The man laughed. I'm David, by the way. And this is Theodore. He held out his hand. I shook it. I'm Liv. This is Geary. Theodore is a very formal name for a balloon bear, Gary said. Look at his suit, David said. He is clearly a classy guy. He pulled a flat white plastic weight from his pocket and tied the balloon string to it. When he handed the balloon to me, the little weight was heavier than I expected. So he won't fly away, he said. I'd love to stay and talk, but I have about 15 10-year-olds waiting for me at the park. He paused, then added, for a birthday party. Just to be clear. I laughed. I assumed Jerry asked him about the balloon business, and he said he was getting into kids' birthday parties and events around the area. He told us he was usually at the market on weekends. Just look for the guy with the balloons, he said. How do you know I'm not friendly with several balloon guys? I asked. I'm willing to take that risk, he said. Then he said goodbye and walked away. As soon as he was far enough, Geary elbowed me. What was that? How did you not get his number? He wasn't flirting with me, Geary stared at me. Then I realized what I had said. Oh my God. He was flirting with me. Maybe the farmer's market is haunted too, she said. Later, when I got home, I placed Theodore in my living room window. I thought maybe if anyone considered robbing the place, they would see a fancy bear guarding the house and think twice. It was a silly thought, but the balloon looked funny there, floating with its frozen smile and little suit. My house was small, narrow, and mostly empty. It was a shotgun-style rental with 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a living room, and a narrow kitchen. I worked from home, so 1 bedroom had become my office. I liked being able to shut the office door when work was done and pretend my job did not exist until morning. The neighborhood had a rough reputation, but I liked it. It was messy and loud sometimes, but there was charm if you looked for it the right way. People watched out for each other. My neighbor, Mary Elizabeth, was ancient, nosy, and somehow aware of everything that happened within 3 blocks. I felt safe enough to leave my screen door open during the day. At least I did before that night. Jerry came over around 4. We opened a bottle of wine while I cooked dinner, and naturally, the conversation returned to the haunting. She still did not believe me. "What is the scariest thing that has happened so far?" she asked. I sliced carrots. The windows opening and closing by themselves. Sometimes one slams out of nowhere. I've heard footsteps in the hall and attic, and the crawl space mumbling. The crawl space thing is the only one that actually bothers me. A loud slam cut her off. We both jumped so badly I almost dropped the knife. A window had slammed shut somewhere in the back of the house. I pointed the knife down the hall. "See?" We walked slowly to my bedroom, me still holding the knife and Gary holding her wine glass like it could protect her. My bedroom window was shut tight. Gary stared at it. "Okay," she said. "That timing was weird. No one is back here. How did it happen? Strong wind?" I gave her the look. Then something clacked on the hardwood floor. We both turned toward the hallway. Theodore was floating toward us. His smiling, bare face looked different now. Not cute. Not funny. The balloon bobbed gently in the air, moving down the hall as if something invisible were pushing it. The plastic weight at the end of the string dragged across the floor, lifting and dropping with little clacking sounds. "It's following us," I whispered. "Maybe it's a cross breeze," Gary said, but her voice did not sound confident anymore. "Not everything is wind, not everything is ghosts." Theodore drifted closer. Then the front door slammed shut with a crash so loud it shook the house. We screamed and ran into the bedroom. I slammed the door behind us and leaned against it, breathing hard. "There was no breeze," I said. "Nothing touched that door. This is ghosts." Before Geary could answer, something scraped under the floor. It came from the crawl space. A slow, dragging sound. Then came a low moan from beneath us. That was enough. I threw the bedroom door open, and Theodore was right outside. I screamed and slapped the balloon away. It bounced down the hall, weight skidding across the floor. And Jerry and I ran out the front door. We ended up outside behind the big oak tree in my yard, sweating, shaking, and talking over each other. I wanted to leave. Jerry wanted to look under the house. "Why would you want to do that?" I asked. "Because if there is a ghost under there and I get it on video, we go viral. Who cares about going viral? It might help. Someone local might know what to do. A priest, a ghost hunter, someone." Before I could stop her, she ran around the side of the house. I followed because I was not going to leave her alone. The crawl space cover was off, leaning against the bush. "That is not ghost work," Gary said. She turned on her phone camera and crouched near the opening. She carefully moved the phone toward the darkness under the house. "If anyone is in there," she said, "you should know that." She screamed and yanked her hand back. "What?" I asked. "There is a man under there." She showed me the video. In the dark space under the house, we could just make out the worn soles of old shoes. "We need to call the police," I said. "Liv?" We both turned. David was walking toward us from the sidewalk. looking like he had stepped out of a commercial. The late afternoon sun shone behind him, and for 1 second, he looked almost too perfect. "You okay?" he asked, his smile fading when he saw our faces. "David, what are you doing here?" "I had a meeting with a family down the street for a party," he said. "I just finished." "What are the odds?" Then he looked at the crawl space. "Why are you looking under your house?" "There is a man down there," Gary said. "Alive?" David mouthed. "He was moaning," I said. So yes, David offered to yell at him, and I let him. He knelt by the opening and shouted in a much deeper voice than I expected, telling the man to get out. That was when my neighbor Mary Elizabeth appeared in her robe at the edge of my yard. "Is Trash Panda Terry under there?" she called. I stared at her. "Is who under there?" She shuffled over, moving slowly but with purpose. Trash Panda Terry. My grandkids named him that after they caught him digging through our trash last year. Better than what people used to call him. "What did they call him?" "That bum Terry," she said. I nodded. Trash Panda Terry is nicer. Mary Elizabeth knelt as much as her old body allowed and called into the crawl space. "Terry. It's Mary Elizabeth. Get out from under this poor girl's house." A muffled voice answered. "Mary?" "Yes, Mary Elizabeth. Come on out." He said he thought he had left something under there. Mary told him he had not and threatened to call the police if he did not leave. After a long, awkward wait, Terry crawled out, covered in dirt and spider webs. He smiled, with half his teeth missing, and apologized. Mary told him to go back to the shelter, and he wandered away. For a moment, the whole haunting seemed almost explainable. The noises under the house, at least, had been Terry. But before Mary left, I asked her if she had ever heard anything about my house being haunted. She paused. Then she said, "Yes, just that. Yes, what kind of things happen here?" I called after her. She turned back and said, "Things much scarier than a man under your house." Then she walked home. Gary offered to let me stay at her apartment, but I did not want to give up my house. Maybe I could reason with the ghost. Maybe we could share the space. After more wine and several ridiculous videos about communicating with spirits, the night became almost normal again. Then Gary found something. She had been looking at the video she took under the house. Behind Terry's shoes, deep in the darkness, there was a face, only for a few frames. 2 empty eyes stared out from under my house. My whole body went cold. Before either of us could speak, someone knocked on the front door. We both screamed. I found it. A voice called. I found it. It was Terry. He yelled through the door that he had found the thing he had been looking for at the shelter. Then he said, "Can you tell the lady who lives under your house that I found it?" She was worried about me. Jerry looked at me. "That is very poltergeist," she whispered. I told Terry I would tell her and asked him to leave. He thanked me and stumbled away. A minute later, my phone buzzed. It was David. He texted that it had been nice seeing me and apologized for there being a guy under my house, which he admitted was not something he usually said to women. Gary grinned. "He has charm." I started texting him back. Then Theodore floated out of the hallway. The balloon moved toward us slowly, its broken little weight dragging along the floor. Gary and I stood together, holding each other, terrified of a smiling bear in a suit. A heavy bookend suddenly flipped off the shelf and landed on Theodore's plastic weight with a loud crack. We ran to my bedroom and slammed the door. The balloon followed us. Its shadow darkened the gap under the door. Then the cracked weight slid partly under the door like a searching finger. Every window in the house slammed shut, one after another. Then my bedroom window locked itself. My phone buzzed again. David, I'm around to help if Gary isn't. Is she still with you? I started typing that something weird was happening, but something slapped my arm hard. My phone flew from my hand and shattered on the floor. A red mark rose on my skin in the shape of a hand. It touched me, I whispered. Then I started crying. The lights flickered. The TV turned on by itself. Radios blared from different rooms. The house filled with noise. Then everything went black and silent. Gary whispered that she should call the police. But what could we say? That a ghost had trapped us in the bedroom with a haunted balloon? Then we heard the front doorknob moving. Gary slid her phone under the bedroom door and turned on the camera. On the screen, we saw the hallway. At first, nothing. Then the front doorknob twisted slowly. A dark figure passed by the front window. There was someone outside. Then came a tapping at my office window. Not loud. Careful, like someone trying not to wake the neighbors. That was not a ghost. Gary grabbed Theodore's broken weight and saw something inside. She cracked it open and slid it to me. A tracker, a small black square with a blinking blue light. I snapped it in half. Then we heard someone climb through the office window. A familiar voice whispered from the hallway. Theodore, thanks for showing me the way. My blood turned cold. David, I said before I could stop myself. Everything went still. Hey, he called softly. Are you okay? Your last text never sent, and I got worried. How did you get in my house? I asked. The front door was open. You're lying, I said. He laughed then, and it was not the cute laugh from the market. It was ugly. Confident, cruel. Is Giri in there with you? Giri moved closer to me, but her shoe hit the door. David burst in so fast we barely reacted. The door slammed into Jerry's head, and she dropped to the floor unconscious. I screamed and tried to run, but David grabbed my leg and pulled me down. He had a knife. The moonlight caught the blade as he climbed over me and pinned me to the floor. Should have asked Terry to stay, he said. I tried to scream, but he covered my mouth. I hit him, scratched him, fought as hard as I could, but he was stronger. He smiled down at me, and I understood that the charming balloon guy had been a mask. The tracker in Theodore was how he followed women home. He had used my fear, my house, and my trust against me. He raised the knife. Then Theodore floated back into the room. David did not notice at first. The balloon settled behind him, soft and silent. The string lifted from the floor. It looped around David's neck. I saw it happen. He finally noticed when the string tightened. His eyes bulged. His hands flew to his throat. He stumbled backward, choking, fighting the balloon like it was alive. I bit his hand hard enough to taste blood. He screamed and pulled away. I ran. He kicked my foot, and I fell face first. My nose hit the floor, and pain exploded across my face. Blood poured down my lips, but I crawled toward the front door and managed to get outside. Red and blue lights flashed in the street. For one confused second, I thought the head injury was making me see things. Then I saw Mary Elizabeth in my driveway, waving police officers toward the house. I stumbled down the steps and pointed inside. He's in there, I said. The police rushed past me with guns drawn. Mary Elizabeth wrapped her shawl around my shoulders while I cried against her. She told me she had heard all the noise. She had come outside and seen David moving around my house. That was why she called the police. Theodore, I whispered. Then, everything went blurry. Later, I learned that the police found David alive, but barely. The balloon string was still wrapped around his neck. He was taken to the hospital in handcuffs. A detective told me David had done this before in other towns. He gave women balloons with hidden trackers inside the weights. Then, he waited until they were alone. Gary woke up with a terrible headache, but she was okay. When I told her the real truth, not the version I told the police, she cried and said I had found the nicest poltergeist in the world. She was right. Everything the ghost had done was to protect me. It slammed windows to warn me. It moved Theodore away from the front window. It knocked the bookend onto the weight to expose the tracker. It locked the doors and windows to slow David down. It turned on the TV and radios to make enough noise for Mary Elizabeth to notice. Someone in that house had been watching over me. Someone from beyond the veil had saved my life. In the struggle, Theodore popped. When I returned, his deflated remains were still outside my bedroom door. I kept them. They are hidden away now, safe. The first time I went back into the house, I almost had a panic attack. My home felt ruined. The air felt dark and heavy. I sat on the couch, put my face in my hands, and cried. I kept thinking one terrible sentence. You are hopeless. Then every window in the house opened at once. Warm sunlight flooded the room. A soft breeze moved through the house, pushing out the stale air. The smell of flowers and blooming trees drifted inside. I lifted my head and smiled through my tears. Thank you, I whispered. The floorboards creaked softly. Gentle footsteps moved down the hall, opening more windows, letting in more light, more air, more warmth. For the first time since everything happened, I felt safe. People can say whatever they want about haunted houses. Maybe some ghosts are angry. Maybe some are dangerous. Maybe some places should be avoided. But my house is different. My house has someone in it who cares. And even if my landlord raises the rent until it sounds like a joke, I am never leaving. Story 3. The lantern is the only thing left now. When I look into its flame, I still hear his voice. Sometimes it sounds like my brother. Sometimes it sounds like Abigail. Sometimes it sounds like a man I never truly knew, but whose name has followed this family like a shadow. The voices come from inside the fire, soft at first, then stronger, until they fill the room and push every other thought out of my head. They tell me the work is not finished. They tell me it has to be finished. My brother meant more to me than my own life. That is the only way I can explain what happened, and even that does not feel strong enough. Wyndham was not just my brother by name. He was the person I protected, the person I followed, the person I believed in when there was nothing else left to believe in. Before Abigail found us, we were nothing. We were abandoned children with no home, no family, and no future anyone cared about. We were hungry, frightened, and angry at a world that had already decided we did not matter. Then, Abigail came to us. She did not look at us like unwanted things. She looked at us like lost children who only needed a hand to hold. She gave us shelter. She gave us food. She gave us names that sounded important when she spoke them. She told us we were loved. She told us we had been chosen. She told us that pain could be turned into purpose, and that the forgotten could become powerful if they stood together as a family. We believed her. Of course we believed her. When you have nothing, the first person who offers you love can become your whole world. For years, Abigail was that world. She was our mother, our teacher, our judge, and our light. The cabin was not much to look at from the outside. It sat deep in the woods, far from roads, and even farther from people who asked too many questions. But to us, it was home. It was the first place where we slept without fear of being thrown out by morning. There were 4 of us boys then. Wyndham, me, Eric, and Luke. Abigail called us her children. She said we were a family of reckoning. She said the world was full of people who chose greed over love, fame over loyalty, and selfishness over family. Those people, she told us, needed to be reminded of what they had forgotten. They needed to be shown the truth. They needed to understand that no one escaped judgment forever. Back then, I thought I understood what she meant. Now, I am not so sure. Abigail left us first. A sickness had settled deep inside her body. It started quietly, with tiredness and a cough she tried to hide. Then it moved into her bones. Month by month, she became smaller. The strong woman who once stood on the porch like a queen began to fade into skin, bone, and pale eyes. Still, even near the end, her voice carried power. When Abigail spoke, we listened. On her final days, she called Wyndham and me to her room. We sat on the edge of her bed. The room smelled of old wood, medicine, and candle smoke. The curtains were drawn, and the only real light came from the lantern on the bedside table. That lantern had always been near her. Its flame never seemed to go out, no matter how long it burned. "Boys," Abigail said. Her voice was weak, and hearing it like that made something crack inside my chest. "My time is close now." Wyndham lowered his head. I saw his shoulders shake. I tried to be strong for him, but my own eyes were already wet. Abigail smiled, though it looked painful. "Do not cry for me," she said. "This body is only a body. It will become dust, like all bodies do. But my spirit will remain." Her thin hand reached toward the lantern. "This is my spirit," she whispered. "This light will not leave you. Not ever." Then her yellowed eyes moved to my brother. "Wyndham, my darling," he looked up quickly. "Yes, Abby?" There was worship in his voice. He loved her more than anyone. He saw her as his savior. And maybe she was. "I entrust this lantern to you," she said. "I entrust all of this to you." Wyndham looked confused and afraid. "Why me?" I placed my hand on his shoulder, not hard, but firmly enough to remind him not to question Abigail too much. But Abigail only smiled. "Because you are my brightest light," she said. "You will continue the work. There is always work to be done." Wyndham swallowed. His face was pale, but he nodded. Then Abigail looked at me. "And you, Taylor," she said. "Stay beside your brother. Protect him. Provide for him. Guide his hand the way I guided yours." "Of course, Abby," I said. I tried to smile, but my mouth would not obey me. A tear slipped down my cheek. Abigail looked at me gently. "Shush now, Taylor," she whispered. "It is almost over." She died peacefully, surrounded by her children. We buried her in the basement of the cabin. Some people would say that was strange, maybe even wrong. But Abigail had always said family should remain close. So we placed her beneath the house she had built for us, under the floorboards where her steps had once moved above us every morning. After she died, Wyndham changed. At first, it was grief. I understood that. We all did. He sat in Abigail's chair for hours, holding the lantern in his lap, staring into the flame as if he could see her face inside it. At night, when the cabin was quiet, I heard him whispering to it. "Your work will be done," he would say. I promise. The flame always answered him with silence. Or at least, I thought it did. For a while, the work continued as Abigail had taught us. Wyndham took her place naturally. He spoke with passion, and people listened. There was something about him that drew broken people close. The lonely, the angry, the abandoned, the forgotten, they all saw something in him. He made them feel chosen. He made them feel like their pain had meaning. He became the man Abigail always believed he could be. When Wyndham spoke, his words were warm and sharp at the same time. He could comfort you and frighten you in the same breath. He could make you feel loved, then make you feel guilty for every selfish thing you had ever done. People followed him because he made them believe they were part of something greater than themselves. I followed him too. I would have followed him anywhere. Then Luke died. His death was sudden and cruel. One day he was with us, laughing in the yard, and the next he was gone. I will not speak much of how it happened. Some memories do not deserve more life than they already have. What matters is what it did to Wyndham. That night, I found him sitting in Abigail's chair. The lantern sat beside him, its flame low and weak. Wyndham was bent forward, sobbing into his hands. "Wyndham," I said softly, "please calm yourself." He looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. "How can I be calm?" he asked. "Our family keeps getting smaller. How do we go on? How do we keep Abigail alive if everyone keeps leaving?" I knelt in front of him and placed my hand on his knee. "We will find a way," I told him. "Let her light guide us. Let her spirit, she tells me to let her rest." His words stopped me cold. "What?" Wyndham's eyes drifted to the lantern. "She says she is tired," he whispered. "She says the work does not need her anymore. But I can't let her go. I need her, Taylor. I need her voice. I need her with me." "You are not alone," I said quickly. "You have me. You have Eric. We are still a family." Wyndham did not answer. He kept staring at the flame. Then he said something that made my stomach tighten. "I hear him." "Who?" "The man in the woods." For a moment, I could not speak. The man in the woods was an old story Abigail used to tell us when we were children. I always thought it was meant to keep us from wandering too far after dark. Every family has stories like that. Every house near woods has a monster hiding between the trees. I never took it seriously. Wyndham did. When we were boys, we once went too deep into the woods at night. We had slingshots with us and pretended we were hunting rabbits, though we were probably only looking for a reason to feel brave. The sun went down faster than we expected. Then clouds covered the moon, and suddenly every tree looked the same. Wyndham lost his slingshot and wanted to go back for it. I told him we would find it in the morning. He refused to move. Before I could argue, a terrible scream tore through the woods. It was not an animal sound. It was high, sharp, and full of pain. I ran. I thought Wyndham was behind me. I never looked back. I was a child, and fear made me selfish. When I reached the cabin and realized he was not with me, I panicked. I grabbed Abigail's dress and begged her to go find him. She knelt, kissed my forehead, and told me Wyndham was too smart to be lost for long. I sat on the porch for nearly an hour, shaking and crying. Then the leaves moved, and Wyndham came out of the trees. I ran to him and hugged him. "I'm sorry," I cried. "I shouldn't have left you." His voice was small when he answered. "Taylor." I pulled back and saw his face. His eyes looked empty. "It was him," he said. "The man in the woods," I asked what he meant. Wyndham said he had opened his eyes and seen a man standing in front of him. The man's eyes glowed yellow. His smile was too wide, and he would not stop smiling. When Wyndham looked down, the man was holding his slingshot. He tried to give it back. When Abigail came outside and heard the story, she laughed softly. "Wyndham, baby," she said, cupping his cheek. "Don't you understand? It is his slingshot, too." Wyndham and I stared at her, confused. Then Abigail smiled into the dark. "You are the man in the woods." I did not understand it then. I did not want to understand it later. But sitting in front of my grieving brother, watching him stare into Abigail's lantern, I remembered that story clearly. I remembered the way his voice had sounded when he came back from the woods. I remembered how empty his eyes had been. "I can't stop him," Wyndham whispered. I gripped his knee harder. "You are strong," I told him. "You have us. Abigail is inside us, not inside that lantern." His face changed. Slowly, he turned to me. "Abigail never left me," he said. "Has she left you?" I gasped as if he had struck me. Do not even suggest that for a second, he looked ashamed. I'm sorry, he said. Forgive me, Taylor. This has been too much. I nodded because I wanted to believe him. We will get through this, I said. We will persevere, but as we sat there in the dim room, with the lantern flame trembling between us, I knew something had shifted. I was looking at my brother, but only part of him seemed to be there. Something else had stepped into the empty space grief had carved inside him. Something dark. Something patient. After that night, the work became different. Before, we had believed ourselves to be teachers. Harsh teachers, yes, but teachers all the same. Abigail taught that punishment should lead to understanding. Reckoning should lead to redemption. Pain had a purpose only if it opened someone's eyes. Wyndham no longer cared about opening eyes. He wanted to break people. He became more violent, more unpredictable. Sometimes he laughed in the middle of terrible things. Sometimes he smiled at suffering like it amused him. His eyes, once warm and bright, became hard and full of something I could not name. Rage, maybe, or hunger. I told myself he was grieving. I told myself Luke's death had wounded him too deeply. But grief does not make a man smile like that. One night, I confronted him. You went too far, I said. You know you did. Wyndham turned toward me with the lantern in his hand. A wicked smile stretched across his face. We were not going far enough, he said. His voice was cold enough to raise goosebumps on my arms. Abigail failed. My breath caught. Wyndham. Her methods were weak, he said. She practiced mercy and called it strength. Do not speak about her that way, I snapped. Mercy was the point. Mercy is how people learn. His smile stayed. No, he said. Mercy is how cowards hide from truth. For one brief moment, I saw a yellow flash in his eyes. I told myself it was only the lantern light. I wanted to believe that. But deep inside, I remembered the boy who came back from the woods and said a smiling man with yellow eyes had offered him his slingshot. After the argument, I went outside and sat on the porch steps. The night was humid. Mosquitoes buzzed near my ears. Fireflies blinked in the yard. For a while, I listened to the dark and tried to slow my breathing. Eric found me there. He sat beside me without speaking at first. Then he said, Your brother is smart. Very smart. He is lost, I said. Eric sighed. The fiend has him now. I looked at him sharply. What did you say? The man in the woods, Eric said. When Abby told Luke and me the story, she called him the fiend. Maybe she softened it when she told you and Wyndham because you were younger. He is not real, I said. Eric looked at me. Then tell me you did not see it. His eyes, that smile. Tell me that is still your brother in there. I could not answer. Eric continued quietly. He told me about Waylon, Abigail's husband, who had died before Wyndham and I joined the family. We knew him only through stories. Abigail had called him Uncle Howdy because he dressed like a cowboy and greeted everyone with warmth. She described him as kind, charming, and full of life. But Eric said there had been another side to Waylon. When the work began, he became someone else. Cold, brutal, almost joyful in his violence. And afterward, he would return to being gentle Uncle Howdy, smiling like nothing had happened. Waylon was the first one who told us about the fiend, Eric said. He said he saw it in the woods, too. He said it changed him. I wanted to laugh at him. I wanted to call it nonsense, but I could not shake the image of Wyndham's yellow eyes. What am I supposed to do? I asked. Eric did not answer. Maybe there was no answer. So I left. It was the hardest thing I had ever done. I told myself I was not abandoning him. I told myself I was surviving. But it felt like betrayal. Abigail had asked me to protect him, and I had failed. I tried to save him. I tried to bring him back. But there was only darkness in him by then, and I did not know how to fight it. The night I left, I found Wyndham speaking to the lantern again. "You had your chance," he whispered to the flame. "You failed. The work I do now is greater than anything you ever did. I should have walked away. Instead, I stepped into the room. 'Wyndham,' I said. 'Listen to yourself.' His head snapped toward me. He had been crying. His eyes were yellow. 'Go,' he said. 'Whatever is happening to you, it can still.' 'Go, Taylor,' he shouted. 'You are not a believer. You never were.' I took a breath. 'This is not you,' I said. 'This is not what Abigail wanted.' His face went still. I will not repeat myself. I do not know why I said what I said next. Maybe I wanted to hurt him before he hurt me. Maybe I wanted one final word to prove I was not afraid. 'She was wrong to trust you,' I said. 'What you have become is everything she hated. She would be disappointed in you.' Then I left before he could answer. Those were the last words my brother ever heard from me. Eric and I left the cabin that night. For 3 months, I tried to build a life somewhere else. I failed. How could I live normally after everything I had seen? Every lantern reminded me of Abigail. Every dark line of trees reminded me of Wyndham. Every stranger's smile made me look too closely at their eyes. Then Eric died. They said it was a heart attack in his sleep. I returned to the cabin after I heard. The place looked exactly the same, but emptier. The porch sagged. The woods pressed close. Inside, dust covered the furniture. Abigail's chair still sat in its place. The lantern still burned. I buried Eric in the basement beside Abigail. It felt right. He belonged with the only family we had ever known. Afterward, I sat between the graves for a long time and cried until there was nothing left inside me. When I finally looked up, I saw the lantern. Its flame danced softly. Then I heard it. The work must continue. The words did not come from outside me. They came from the flame, from the walls, from under the floor, from somewhere inside my own skull. I stood without meaning to. My feet carried me toward the lantern. 'I am not strong enough,' I whispered. Another voice answered. 'Not yet, son, you know what I mean.' My breath stopped. That voice was not Abigail's. It was not Wyndham's. It was older, warmer, and strange. 'Uncle Howdy?' I whispered. The flame grew brighter. A low laugh moved through the room. Then Abigail's voice came to me. 'My boy.' My knees weakened, and I fell to the floor. 'You must complete the work. Make us proud.' 'I can't,' I said. 'You are stronger than you know.' Wyndham was the strong one, I whispered. 'I am nothing.' Then my brother's voice came from the flame. I was the color red in a world of black and white. I began to cry again. 'Wyndham,' I said, 'I am so sorry. Follow the words of the red. Brother, you are the reckoning. You are all of them.' I did not understand. 'Who am I?' I asked. For a moment, the cabin was silent. Then all the voices spoke together. 'We are the reckoning.' The flame rose higher. 'Our vessel, Taylor, the work must continue.' Suddenly, I understood. Or I thought I did. The lantern was not only Abigail's spirit. It was all of them. Abigail, Wyndham, Waylon, maybe Luke, maybe Eric, maybe every abandoned soul who had ever found shelter beneath that roof. I carried the lantern upstairs to Abigail's old room. I do not know why. Something guided me there. I set the lantern on her nightstand and opened the closet. Inside, hanging in the dark, was a mask. I had never seen it before, yet somehow I knew its face. It was shaped like the stories Abigail told of Waylon. Friendly and terrible at the same time, a smile that could welcome you home or send you to your knees. There you are. The voices whispered. I lifted the mask with trembling hands. 'Who am I?' I asked. "Uncle Howdy," the voice answered. "You know what I mean?" I put the mask over my face. The moment it touched my skin, I felt him around me. Not just Waylon, but all of them. Abigail's grace, Wyndham's fire, Eric's loyalty, Luke's silence. Every lost thing that had ever been gathered into this family. The lantern flame grew stronger. "We are the reckoning," the voices said. "We are redemption." The forgotten and abandoned call to us. My hand closed around the lantern's handle. A smile pulled at my mouth. I did not want it at first. Then I let it come. "The work will be done," I whispered into the flame. "My life for you." After that, I called to the abandoned. I called to the forgotten. I called to those who had no home, no family, no place in a world that hated their brokenness. They came to me the way we once came to Abigail. They came hungry for love, for meaning, for someone to tell them they mattered. We grew, and I led them. The world looks at us and says we are sick. Maybe we are, but if the world wants to call us sick, then sick is what we will be. The lantern still burns, the voices still speak, and the work is not finished. Story 4. Everyone told me I was the luckiest woman alive. They said it so often that the word stopped sounding like a compliment. It became something heavy, something people placed around my neck and expected me to wear with a smile. Lucky, that was what I was supposed to be. Lucky because I lived in a huge house on beautiful land. Lucky because I was engaged to a man with money, power, and a name everyone in town knew. Lucky because my future husband was handsome, respected, and already being treated like the next great leader of our little Texas county. Lucky because he loved me. At least that was what they all believed. Every time I went to the country club, women with perfect hair and expensive lipstick smiled at me with teeth sharp enough to cut glass. They leaned close as if they were about to share a secret. But the secret was always the same. I had heard it 100 times. I know I shouldn't say this. Then don't, I would think. But look at him. I had looked at him. I looked at him every day. And his job, yes, the job was impressive. Sheriff for now. Future mayor if his family had their way. Maybe even something bigger one day. In this town, his last name could open doors, close mouths, and bury problems so deep no one remembered where they had been. "You're going to be First Lady someday." That always made me want to laugh and scream at the same time. They would touch my arm and smile wider. All I'm saying is, you're so lucky. That word followed me everywhere. It was even printed on the little laminated sheet hanging on the cage at the animal shelter. Black letters on white plastic. Lucky, the cat behind the bar stared at me with one yellow eye. The other socket was empty, sealed over with old scar tissue. He was a torn up, angry-looking thing with rough fur, a crooked ear, and the kind of face that said life had never once been kind to him. He sat in the back of the cage, surrounded by the smell of disinfectant and old litter, and stared at me like he already hated me. I stared back. His name fit him in the saddest way possible. Lucky had clearly survived things that should have killed him. His body was covered in faded battle scars. One eye was gone. Part of his tail bent at a strange angle. He looked like he had crawled out of hell and decided he was not going back without a fight. I wondered if he liked the name. Probably not. If he had really been lucky, he would have had both eyes. If he had really been lucky, he would not have been sitting in a shelter behind dirty bars, waiting for someone to decide whether he was worth saving. If he had really been lucky, maybe he would have had a soft bed, a warm house, and someone who loved him without wanting anything from him. If he had really been lucky, he might have been me. That thought almost made me laugh. My thumb rubbed the engagement ring on my finger. The diamond caught the overhead light and threw it back in tiny, bright flashes. Lucky, I reached out and slipped one pale finger between the bars. The cat struck at me so fast, I barely pulled back in time. His paw smacked the metal, claws out, followed by a sharp hiss and a long, angry sound that felt very much like a lecture. I did not speak cat, but I understood the message. "Oh, he's not very fond of people," the rescue worker said behind me. She sounded nervous. She was young, small, and too gentle for a place filled with animals that had been hurt by the world. I glanced back at her, then looked at the cat again. He blinked slowly with his one good eye. "I think I'll take him," I said. The worker hesitated. "Are you sure? He really doesn't seem to like you." "I need a barn cat," I said. "Something to catch rats. He seems like the type." The cat hissed again. "Besides," I added, "I hear he's lucky." The worker stared at me. A few seconds passed. "That was a joke," I said. She gave a small, uncomfortable smile. "You're kind of weird, ma'am. I remember wishing animal shelters accepted tips, just so I could refuse to give her one. Instead, I asked her to put Lucky in a carrier." Lucky had a lot to say about that, too. He screamed, hissed, growled, and made sounds that seemed far too large for his small body. I secretly liked him more for it. At the front desk, I signed the paperwork, while Lucky continued yelling from his carrier on the floor. The receptionist looked at my name on the form, then looked up at me. "Hey," she said slowly, "aren't you married to?" "Engaged," I said. "But yes." Her eyes lit up. "Oh my God. I went to school with him. We actually went to prom together." "Wow," I said. "That's cool." It was not cool. It was the fourth time a woman in town had told me that story or something close to it. My fiancé had a type. Blonde hair, light eyes, pretty smile, full chest. The kind of women who looked good beside him in photos and laughed at the right times. I did not look like them. I had dark hair, dark eyes, and a face people called elegant when they were trying not to say cold. Sometimes I wondered if he had chosen me because I looked classy enough to stand next to him during speeches. Maybe I made people take him more seriously. Maybe I made him look less like the boy who had taken every pretty blonde in town to dinner at least once. The receptionist leaned forward, smiling. "You are so lucky." I knew what she was going to say before she said it. I left before she could finish. On the drive home, Lucky screamed from the carrier in the passenger seat like I had kidnapped him from paradise instead of a cage that smelled like old bleach and regret. I ignored him for the first 10 minutes. Then, somewhere near Brookshire's, I realized what I had been craving all week: Lucky Charms. It hit me so suddenly that I almost laughed. I had not eaten them in years. I was 27, old enough to know cereal with tiny marshmallows was not a real meal. But suddenly, I wanted it more than anything. Maybe it was the name. Maybe my brain was making a joke at my expense. I pulled into the grocery store parking lot. I could not leave Lucky in the car. It was summer in Texas, and the heat could kill anything trapped inside a car within minutes. So I carried the angry cat inside with me. This was not a popular decision. Lucky hated it. The shoppers hated it. An elderly employee hated it most of all. I was almost at the cereal aisle when she approached me, her face tight with the kind of anger people save for rule breakers. "Ma'am," she said, "would you mind leaving your cat outside?" I looked down at the carrier, where Lucky was growling like a demon trapped in a plastic box. "I didn't want to leave him in the car," I said. "Well, we're going to have to ask you to leave. I was already heading that way. We can't check you out. I'm just getting cereal," I said. "Me and the cat will be gone in 2 minutes." "Ma'am, we have a very strict policy." A man in manager clothes appeared behind her before she could finish. He was round, shiny, and smiling with teeth too white to be natural. "That's enough. Kathy," he said. "Why don't you go help Jackson in the back?" Kathy gave me one last hard look, then left. The manager turned his bright smile on me. "Sorry about that. She's a stickler for the rules. It's fine," I said. "Thank you. I hoped that would be the end of it." It was not. He tilted his head. "You don't remember me, do you?" I stared at him. "Should I?" "Oh," I said, forcing a smile. "You do look familiar, Country Club," he said. "Almost took $1,000 off your man on the golf course." "Of course." "Oh, right," I said. "Of course," he laughed. "I gotta tell you, he's a good man, the best," I said. "You are so lucky." I bought the cereal and left. Outside, near the entrance, a small crowd had gathered. Families stood with flyers in their hands. Some were crying. Some were staring at anyone who passed, desperate for someone to stop and care. I knew what the flyers were before I got close. Missing people. There had been too many lately. At first, the town treated them like separate tragedies. A woman who did not come home. A man who disappeared from his property. A couple who vanished after leaving a restaurant. But then, they found the first body, or part of one. After that, nobody could pretend anymore. The dead they found were not simply dead. They were ruined in ways people did not want to describe out loud. I had seen the photos my fiancé left on his desk, the ones he probably thought I had not noticed. Bodies pulled apart, limbs stretched too long, skin ripped in places that made no sense, faces frozen in pain so deep it seemed impossible a human throat could survive long enough to scream it. The families with flyers still hoped their loved ones were only missing. I did not have the heart to tell them hope could be cruel. I tried to slip past them, but a small voice stopped me. "Is that you?" I turned. An old woman stood a few steps away, holding a stack of flyers against her chest. Her name was Ida. She was tiny, wrinkled, and soft-eyed. The kind of woman who looked like she should be sitting in a rocking chair with tea instead of standing outside a grocery store begging strangers to look at a missing person poster. "Hey, Ida," I said. This time, my smile was real. I had not been close to Ida, but I had been close to her niece, Marie, Quiet Marie, who sat at the country club with her hands folded and almost never spoke. I liked her because she did not try to fill silence with poison. She was the first person in town to vanish. Ida smiled when she recognized me. "I knew it was you," she said. "No one else in this town has hair like that." I chose to take that as a compliment. She handed me a flyer. Marie's face looked up at me from the paper. I could not look at it for long. Ida's smile faded. "Has your fiancé mentioned anything?" I shook my head. She nodded, but her eyes were tired. "Is it bad that I'm glad more people vanished after her?" I looked at her. "I know that sounds awful," she said quickly. "But after they found Jackson, people started whispering about Marie. They said maybe she ran off. Maybe she was involved. People didn't know her." "I understand," I said. "She wasn't that type, even if she should have run." Ida glanced toward the crowd. "I never liked Jackson. He never dirtied his coat for her." "No," I thought, but he busted her lip more than once. "I wasn't a fan either," I said. "It breaks my heart seeing folks talk about him like he was some kind of saint," Ida said. "That man was rotten. I was lucky to have a good husband like Roge." Then she touched my arm. "You too, honey, you are so lucky. I was so lucky. I was so very, very lucky." By the time I got home, Lucky had stopped screaming. In fact, when I carried him to the barn and opened the carrier door, he refused to come out. He had spent the whole ride acting like the carrier was a torture chamber. But now that he was free, he curled up inside and closed his one eye. "Seriously?" I said. He ignored me. I considered taking him back to the shelter, Let some sticky-fingered child walk past his cage and cry because Mommy would not let them adopt the scary one-eyed cat. Let the shelter decide after a few months that nobody wanted him. The thought was cruel. I felt bad as soon as I had it. Sorry, I muttered. Lucky did not care. I left him in the barn and stepped outside. Our property spread around me in rolling green hills. From a distance, the land looked beautiful enough to paint. Grass moved in soft waves under the wind. The big house stood bright white against the green. Huge and perfect and old. Too old. Too perfect. It had once been a plantation house. My fiancé's family had renovated it until every surface shined, but no amount of paint could change what it had been built for. The columns still stood tall and proud, as if the house wanted everyone to remember the people who built it had once thought themselves gods. Old money kept it alive. Old shame kept its roots deep in the soil. His family had given it to us as an engagement gift, a lovely home for their lovely son and his future bride. I stared at it for a long time. Then I spat into the grass and turned toward the chicken coop. Farm work was not something I enjoyed. Honestly, most work was not something I enjoyed, but farm work had a special way of making me miserable. The cows hated me. The horses stressed me out. The goats liked to sneak up behind me and ram the backs of my knees. The chickens were different. I liked the chickens. They liked me too. When I entered the coop, I usually sang to them, and they would calm down, clucking softly while I gathered the eggs. My fiancé was great with every other animal, but the chickens hated him. They pecked his hands and scratched his wrists every time he tried to collect eggs. That made me love them more. The tin door creaked when I pulled it open. The birds scattered, flapping and complaining until they heard my voice. As I went down in the river to pray, I sang softly, studying about that good old way. The chickens settled a little, but not as much as usual. Their feathers stayed raised. Their movements were sharp and nervous. They glanced toward the back of the coop, then toward me, then back again. "What's wrong with you girls?" I asked. "Drama in the hen house? Is Teddy Roostervelt causing trouble again?" Usually, I would laugh at my own stupid joke and they would peck at the ground like I had said something wise. Not this time. I tossed feed across the dirt. That helped. The chickens gathered around it, pecking quickly, but the fear did not fully leave them. I moved toward the nesting boxes. "Okay, girls," I said. "What have we got today?" Then I stopped. Something was wrong. I could taste it before I saw it. Metal, like pennies on my tongue. It was a taste I knew too well. Blood had a way of announcing itself before the eyes fully understood. I'd gone to bed with that taste in my mouth more times than I wanted to remember. Henry Clinton lay in the back of the coop. The name was too silly for the horror of what had happened to her. Her little body had been split open. Something sharp and jagged had carved through her chest, leaving her ribs exposed like a tiny broken cage. Her insides were gone, not eaten cleanly, not taken the way a fox or raccoon would take them. Cleared out. Arranged, her head sat apart from the body, twisted at an angle, one black eye staring toward me. I knew a dead chicken could not blame me, but seeing my reflection in that black eye made my stomach turn. I whispered a name under my breath. I do not know why that name came to me. Honey? I jumped and spun around. A large blue shape filled the doorway. For half a second, my body prepared to fight. Then my mind caught up and recognized my fiancé standing there in his sheriff's uniform, broad shoulders blocking the light. He held up both hands. "Sorry, I called your name, Jesus." I breathed. "I didn't think you'd be home this early." "I'm late, actually," he said. And his voice faded when he saw the chicken. Oh my God, I did not look back at it. He stepped past me, frowning at the scene. Think it was a fox? I shrugged. Foxes don't usually stop at one, maybe. His eyes moved around the coop. I watched him instead of the dead chicken. There was a dark stain near the gold badge on his chest. Maybe dirt, maybe blood. His eyes looked tired. What is it? I asked. He did not answer right away. Then he walked deeper into the pen. Later that night, he stood in our bedroom talking about press conferences while I stared out the window at the dark shape of the chicken coop. The media will probably want a statement tonight, he said. After that, I don't see how a good night's rest will help public confidence. I kept looking out the window. Who was it? I asked. Some hermit, he said. Only one of the deputies knew him. Lived off the land mostly. That's probably why it took so long for anyone to realize he was missing. What number is that now? I asked. 7? 7 since Jackson and his wife disappeared. Marie, I said. What? Her name was Marie, not Jackson's wife, he paused. Right, the coop was barely visible under the new moon sky. The night was dark and thick, and the stars were cold points above the hills. You're sure it wasn't an animal? I asked. Most bears don't stretch their food to death, he said. I said nothing. Sorry, he added. It's fine. Silence filled the room. After a while, he said, it would look good if my wife stood beside me at the conference. People are starting to think you're a shut-in. There were many things I could have said. I could have told him I was not his wife yet. I could have told him that I did not care what his golf friends or donors or church ladies thought of me. I could have told him that he only wanted me there because I looked nice beside him. Because I softened him. Because a man trying to become mayor needed a pretty woman at his side, and a story people could understand. Instead, I said, I should stay here. Whatever killed my hen might come back. He was quiet. In the window's reflection, I saw him turn toward the door. I thought he was leaving, but he stopped with one hand against the old wallpaper. His fingers flexed. For a moment, he looked like he was holding himself up with that hand, like the house itself might swallow him if he let go. Then he slammed his palm into the wall. Sometimes I don't understand you, he said. I kept watching him in the reflection. Do you know what it's like? He continued. To go out there and see my citizens, your citizens? I said. You're not mayor yet, darling. My friends, he snapped, torn apart by some maniac. And when I come home, all I get is ice. I said nothing. His hand had left a dent in the wall. He noticed it and dropped his arm. The light caught the silver cufflinks at his wrists, his father's cufflinks. For one strange second, they looked less like jewelry and more like chains. I know this agreement isn't ideal for you, he said quietly. It wasn't what I wanted either. But our parents put a lot into this. With my father gone, I'm the head of this family now. I don't think I can hold all of it alone. Still, I said nothing. That was how the conversation ended. He left to save the town. I stayed in the old house, haunted by money, history, and sins no one wanted to name. When he was home, I never knew what to do with myself. Everything I did felt wrong under his eyes. When he was gone, the house felt too alive. The old wooden walls ticked and settled. The grandfather clock beat through the rooms like a giant heart. Sometimes I imagined the living room breathing, swelling and shrinking, waiting to open and swallow me into the earth. Maybe the house could swallow people. Maybe it already had. I took the rifle from the cabinet. It was a .30-06. Probably too much gun for a fox, but it was mine. That mattered. I sat in a rocking chair on the porch with the rifle across my lap and watched the dark shape of the coop. The chair creaked under me in a slow rhythm. Somewhere in the barn, Lucky cried like a lonely old tomcat. I smiled despite myself. Lucky, I whispered. I do not remember falling asleep. One moment, I was awake, listening to the night. The next, I snapped open my eyes to the sound of screaming chickens. I cursed and ran. The rifle was in my hands before I fully understood I had stood up. I sprinted across the dark yard toward the coop. Halfway there, I tripped over something alive. A rooster gave an offended squawk. Teddy Roostervelt strutted past me, free from the coop and pecking happily at the ground. If Teddy was outside, that meant something had gotten inside. The coop was destroyed. Something had torn through the chicken wire like it was tissue. Not a fox, not a raccoon. Whatever had done it stood much taller than that. Feathers drifted through the air. Blood spotted the dirt. Bodies were scattered in pieces so mangled, I could not tell which part belonged to which bird. A chicken head hung from the wire roof. The air was full of that same metal taste. This was not hunger. This was cruelty. No animal had done this. A voice spoke behind me. Hello. It was quiet and muffled, but definitely behind me. I spun around and raised the rifle. The darkness beyond the coop was solid. I could not see anyone. My eyes searched the black line of trees, the ground, the broken wire, but there was nothing. You're on private property, I said. My voice shook. Holy shit, a man's voice cried. Holy shit, I hear you. Where are you? I froze. He sounded terrified. Somewhere you shouldn't be, I called. Get the hell out of here. I'm armed, he shouted back, his voice breaking. I swear to God, I'll shoot. Something was wrong. This did not sound like a killer. It sounded like a man losing his mind. Please, he cried, you have to help me. I don't know where I am. I kept the rifle raised and reached for my phone with my other hand. When the flashlight came on, it cut across the chicken pen, the ruined wire, and the bloody dirt. There was no one there. The man kept crying. Please, 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 where are you? I can't see you. I turned in a slow circle, shining the light everywhere. Nothing. Where are you? I asked. I don't know, he sobbed. I don't know. I've been walking in this forest for 7 hours. I don't think the moon has moved. I stared at the empty darkness. What? I said I don't know where I am. Can you see me? I asked. No, I can't see anything except trees. You're in a forest? Yes. I'm in my chicken pen, I said. There are trees near me, but I'm not in a forest. I'm touching a tree right now, he said, panic rising again. I've been walking forever. I haven't seen a house, a road, nothing. I only heard you walking, so I called out. I lowered the rifle just a little. If I'm not in the forest and you're not in my yard, I said slowly, how are we hearing each other? There was a long silence. Then he whispered, oh my God, are you shining that light? Before I could answer, something moved on the ground. A small object pushed up through the dirt in the middle of the bloody coop. It wriggled like a worm. My stomach twisted when I realized what it was. A human finger. It slid out of a tiny hole in the ground, pale and dirty, feeling around blindly. You're underground? I gasped. No, he said. No, I'm looking at the moon. You're underground. A cold feeling moved through me. It's a new moon tonight, I said. There is no moon to see. The man went quiet. Then he said, very softly, that doesn't look like our moon. I knelt and leaned closer to the hole. Put your eye to it, I said. Look, the finger disappeared. For a while, there was only silence. Then his voice came again, broken and small. How? Curiosity got the better of me. I should have run. I should have called my fiancé. Instead, I lowered my face to the hole and looked through. On the other side was a forest. Not my yard. Not any place I knew. Tall black trees stood under a full silver moon, but the moon was wrong. Its markings were strange, its light too bright, too sharp, too old. It hung over the forest like an eye. "Impossible," I whispered. "Please," the man said. "Please get me out. Get a shovel. Dig me out. I'll call my fiancé," I said. "He's the sheriff, no?" The man shouted. "No cops. I need out now. They're going to find me." "Who?" "The thing's hunting me. I thought you hadn't seen anyone. They're not people," he whispered. "They've been following me. I'm bleeding. Please, you have to." He stopped. "Oh," he said. "What?" "No, stay away from me. Get away. What's happening?" His scream tore through the hole. At first, it was human. Then it stretched, twisted, deepened, and became something else. Something too large to come from a human throat. Then, I felt a pull. My hair whipped forward toward the hole. Dirt around it began to stretch, not slide. Stretched, the ground warped as if the earth itself had turned soft and elastic. The details of the dirt and feathers pulled long and thin, bending toward the tiny opening. I jumped back. The scream became a roar. I turned and tried to run for the house, but every step was slow and useless, like running in a dream. The coop seemed to stretch around me. No matter how hard I pushed forward, I could not escape the pull. The ground tilted. The broken chicken wire leaned toward the hole. The earth sloped down like the inside of a funnel. I was falling toward it, toward that other forest, toward the wrong moon. Then, suddenly, the roar stopped. The force vanished. I hit the bloody ground hard and lay there gasping, staring at the tiny hole. Nothing came out. No giant beast, no hand, no man, only silence. Then Lucky screamed from the barn. That sound got me up. I do not know what kind of courage moved through me then. It may not have been courage at all. Maybe it was anger. Maybe guilt. Maybe I just could not stand hearing one more small creature suffer on my land. I grabbed the rifle and ran to the barn. Inside, Lucky's screams became wet gurgles. Strange colored lights flickered through the open door, even though the barn lights did not work. Blue, green, white, gold, they moved across the walls like reflections from water. I lifted the rifle and stepped inside. A creature crouched near the hay. It was eating Lucky. His body was torn open in front of it, and his head lay in the far corner of the barn, one yellow eye still wide. Small orbs of shifting light floated around the creature's body. Its skin was ash gray and thin enough that I could see the shape of ribs beneath it. Tiny points in the skin glittered like stars trapped under flesh. At first, I thought it was human. Then it looked at me. Its eyes were huge, bright and golden like an owl's, far too large for its face. Its hair was long, dark green, and sharp-looking, almost like leaves or quills. It lifted around its head as if stirred by wind I could not feel. My hands shook around the rifle. "Hey," I said. The creature froze. Those golden eyes locked onto me. "Don't come closer," I said. "Just get out of my barn." It stared. Then its head tilted. "My barn?" it said. My blood went cold. It could speak. "Yes," I said. "My barn. Leave now or I'll shoot." The creature stood. It was female, or close enough to female that my mind gave it the word. It was almost human in shape, but not enough to be mistaken for one. The ears were wrong. The eyes were wrong. The hair was wrong. The teeth were small and sharp when it smiled. "My barn?" It repeated. "Yes," I snapped. "Leave my barn." It looked around, then back at me. "My barn," it said. Its eyes narrowed. "My barn, Yoon." The barn vanished. The walls, the rafters, the hay, the tools, every rusty nail disappeared in an instant. In their place, white feathers fell around me like snow. They filled the air so thickly I could barely see. I screamed and pulled the trigger. The rifle blast tore through the white storm. Something hissed. I worked the bolt with shaking hands, but before I could chamber another round, the creature was on me. 2 hands closed around my throat. They were strong as tree roots. My feet left the ground. I gagged and clawed at its wrists. The moment my fingers touched its skin, green flame burst into the air. The creature screeched and vanished into the falling feathers. A voice called from somewhere in the storm. Ralt, Titim. I raised the rifle again. I searched the white feathers for movement. There, to my left, a flash of dark green. Then something fell from the sky. A meteor struck the ground between us. First came the crack, sharp and holy, like lightning hitting earth. Then came heat. It rolled over me like an oven door opening, only hotter, stronger, alive. Then came the force. It threw me backward before pain had time to arrive. I landed hard, choking on sulfur and dust. A bare foot pressed against my chest. The creature stood over me, glowing eyes cutting through the burned feathers. It raised one hand toward the sky. Ralt, it said. I could not move. The rifle was gone. My body was broken in places I did not want to understand. The middle school martial arts lessons I had not thought about in years would not have helped, even if I could stand. So I stared at her, at the monster, at the impossible thing from the wrong moon. Her eyes narrowed again, then suddenly widened. The gold softened. The black pupils spread across them like deep pools of water. Something changed in her face. Not kindness exactly, not pity. Something stranger. Warmth bloomed in my chest. She lowered her hand. Then she lifted her foot off me and knelt down. Her face came close to mine. Her forehead touched my forehead. All I could see were her eyes, huge and dark now, with only a thin ring of gold around the edges. They looked like twin eclipses. Lonnie, she whispered. Then she left. I could not turn my head to watch her go. I only lay there under the open sky, staring at the stars. They looked brighter than I had ever seen them. The whole universe seemed to open above me, endless and blue and silver. For a while, I forgot the house. I forgot my fiancé. I forgot the word lucky. It felt as if the earth had fallen away beneath me and I was floating among the stars. I had no duty, no name, no ring, no family agreement, no old money wrapped around my throat. I was only a mind drifting through light. I do not know how long I stayed that way. Then my fiancé's face blocked the stars, and I crashed back into my body. I never told anyone what truly happened that night. The official story was strange enough. A meteorite had struck the property, destroyed the barn, and torn apart the chicken coop. Newspapers loved it for a few days. Reporters called it a freak event. Scientists came and took samples. People in town whispered about bad luck and blessings and signs from God. Then another person went missing, and my face disappeared from the front page. I was grateful for that. I spent time in the hospital. Broken ribs, burns, bruises, a concussion. My fiancé sat beside my bed during visiting hours, holding my hand when nurses came in, looking tired and noble for anyone who happened to pass. Everyone told me I was lucky. Lucky to be alive. Lucky he found me. Lucky the meteor had not landed a few feet closer. Lucky, that was a month ago. I still do not understand what happened. I do not understand the hole in the chicken coop, the man in the wrong forest, the creature that hunted him, or the woman with golden eyes who came through. I do not understand the missing bodies, the stretched limbs, the torn skin, or why the dead seemed to multiply after she arrived. I know I should be afraid. I am afraid. But fear is not the only thing I feel. Every evening when the sun begins to set, I walk to the edge of the forest with food. Raw meat at first, because that was what she ate. Then fruit, eggs, bread, little things. Offerings, I suppose, though I do not like that word. Sometimes the food is still there the next morning. Sometimes it is gone. Once I found a single white feather in its place, shining faintly with colors that did not belong to this world. I keep it hidden in my room. I should tell my fiancé. I should tell someone. I should stop feeding the thing that may be connected to all the horror in this town. But I cannot get her eyes out of my mind. In them, I saw something I had never seen in this house, in this town, or in my own reflection. Wonder, power, a strange, wild kind of beauty. And more than anything, freedom. Everyone says I am lucky. Maybe they are right. But when I think of her running into the forest beneath the stars, untouched by rules, families, money, husbands, promises, and names, I know the truth. She is not lucky. She is free. And God help me. I want to know what that feels like.